Hello, everyone. I am coming to you live now on Thursday instead of Friday. Welcome to What Would Dorcy Do? This is a special edition today. I am pretty fired up, and the title of today's What Would Dorcy Do is how to get your ex to stop alienating or how to get your co-parent to change. And this morning I was up early, and in my early morning rise, discovered a video that was posted yesterday by a group of adult alienated children. And I watched the video, and I know the people in the video, and um, boy, it really was disturbing to me, and it brought up a lot of emotion, and a lot of deep, deep sorrow, and pain and frustration on so many levels. And so I really want to talk with you guys today, and feel free to pop in the chat. Um, I really want to bring forth something today that I've been talking about for almost 20 years. And it's this narrative that people seem to be stuck in, that if they could just get the other parent to change, if the child would just wake up and understand what's going on, all of these things out here. And I guess I was really, really, really frustrated this morning because I started looking in the different platforms of which people were communicating about this video. And I think that, I've been fired up today about it. And I'm trying to manage my emotions in this live with you today, but I'm going to be raw and real because I am a formerly alienated child. And I've been on the social media platforms and doing this recovery work for almost 2 decades. And I was really taken aback by watching the video. And these adult children, some of them are doing some work in this space, or maybe all of them are, I don't know, uh, are making claims of being shunned by the professionals in this community. And I posted a bunch of comments on their Twitter, and one of the things I found really interesting was that I wasn't included in their adult survivor group of alienated children. I've been excluded from a club that clearly I should be a part of. I've been doing this work for almost 2 decades. I've been an alienated child since I was 5 years old, and I solved the problem. So why am I excluded? Why am I being shunned? And one of the people said, well, it wasn't purposeful that I was excluded. And I don't know if that's true or not. And I don't really care. The problem is this great divide that's happening and continues to happen in this family dynamic. And it's a fucking problem. And I see it with parents on both sides of the aisle, the fracture in the child. And these adult children are rising up, thank God, and people are speaking about what's happened to them. And I'm so eternally grateful that kids feel safe to speak up. And I'm disgusted with how people are treating some of them. And then I'm also disgusted with how they are also showing up, but not so much at them, at the children, because I know what it's like to rise up in this family dynamic and to step out into the world as an alienated kid. When I started this, there was nobody on social media talking about alienation, not one person. Okay. I remember crying with the coach that I had hired, a business coach. And I'm like, there's nobody talking about it. Nobody understands what's going on. And it was terrifying. Okay. Terrifying. And I was an alienated kid trying to figure things out as a professional in the space as a coach. I started this in 2006. And I joined Facebook in 2007. Okay. One of the first people to join Facebook as a regular person. And it was absolutely terrifying. And back then, all vernacular that we had was alienation. And it is mission critical that we speak in a unified voice. I understand that for the solution to come out as a whole. Okay, that makes sense. But for the love of all things holy, people, please do not lambaste the adult children, especially the newer ones coming into the space, emerging out of the fog. It is repugnant to treat anybody so poorly, and especially alienated kids who are finding their place in the world and wanting to help other people. Okay. Some of the comments that I've seen, some of the things that I've seen are very triggering for me as an adult child of this pathology. And I'm going to be very raw with you guys today because I think you're missing the point. A lot of parents don't understand the immense courage it takes, for an abused child to rise up out of the rubble and speak up. And I know a lot of people that are trying to teach them a lesson, trying to explain, you can't speak this way because we can't say parental alienation because it's not a real form of pathology. I get it. It isn't. There is a diagnosable pathology, but we don't attack the kids. What are you doing? Okay. What we're doing when you're doing that is you're fragmenting the child and you're creating another divide. People, stop splitting. Everybody is splitting. Now, their video is splitting too, claiming that the professionals are shunning them. I don't know who these professionals are. I think they're talking about Dr. Childress. I think they're passively talking about me and certainly other people, maybe Melanie, who's a researcher, because they talk a lot about researching in this video. I don't care. What I know about Dr. Childress is he's not picking a side, okay? He has a diagnosis. He has an assessment and a diagnosis from already accepted constructs of psychology, period, okay? You can take Dr. Childress out of the information he provides, okay? Take him out. Take his name and everything he's done out. And as a mental health provider, you can go straight to the DSM and you could diagnose this family dynamic without ever mentioning Dr. Childress and without ever mentioning parental alienation, okay? This is the argument that people are like creating this big false straw man argument that it's Dr. Childress against Gardner. No, it's not. It's not. Parental alienation is not a new form of pathology. It already exists. It's already diagnosable, okay? We use the vernacular here because we're laymen. We know what it means, okay? In a professional setting, the professional should speak with proper language. What I'm experiencing, and I've been experiencing all morning about this, and really for a long time, but the video really brings it to light, is the fragmentation that's still happening in this family dynamic, and the pitting and the shunning and the finger pointing. Okay, what I see in that video is a young adult woman who's rising up out of the rubble. Okay, she's figuring her shit out. She was alienated from her dad. She's reunited with her dad, and she has all this angst about her mom. Okay, I don't think she's speaking to her mom. I don't think she's resolved it yet. I don't know, but from what I've watched, I don't think she has. We still have a fragmented child. We still have a broken family. Okay, in standing in her power and fighting a narrative of alienation as a formerly alienated child gives her a sense of power. I know I've been there. Okay, you feel as the alienated child, oof, okay, justified for the way that we behaved as alienated kids. So for those of us that are really alienated, so those of us that really rejected a parent, those of us that did shitty things like you are experiencing from your children, I've been there. I was that kid, okay? So for those of us that are really adult children, we know what it's like to be that kid, okay? So I know what it's like to make a false allegation. I know what it's like to lob hatred and mean, terrible things towards a parent that I love. I know what it's like. The problem is until you resolve this pathology within yourself, including the alienated kids, okay, including the alienated child, it's still a fragmented family, okay? So I see a beautiful young woman. She's figuring things out, and I see that she's captured by the pathology of the narrative of fighting an argument that is a straw man argument, that parental alienation is a thing, and that she's being shunned, and that this group of adult children are being shunned by the professionals. They are splitting the children from the solution. It's disgusting. It's literally the most disgusting thing. Okay. Now I'm gonna play it out in the actual pathology. Here's what happens. Okay. If you say something to the child, right? The child's going to dig in their heels. How dare you say this isn't my authentic voice? This is who I authentically am. This is my voice, right? And the child is right. This is her experience, right? So it's a child experience. Okay. If you think about what's happening right now and the great divide, who's right? You guys are all in this convince and resist dance, and the child is stuck in the middle. The child is stuck in the middle. Okay. You're fragmenting the child. The child loves both parents. Okay. Even when they protest how much they hate the parent, they love that parent. So how do you get that parent to change? You have to shift how you're showing up. You have to do the inner work. We keep getting calls from parents that are saying, well, I'm just going to wait because someday my child's going to wake up and they're going to figure it out. But then these children are waking up and they're figuring it out, but you don't like the narrative. You don't like what they're doing and trying to figure it out. So you're trying to preach to teach them, right? Trying to convince them of something and they're resisting you. Or they're trying to convince you of something and you're resisting them. Okay. I want you to think about how you're showing up in this family dynamic out in the world. Okay. Out in the world. These children are being torn apart, and these adult children are rising up and they're feeling shunned. Now, I get that because when I first started in this space, I was shunned. The professionals didn't want to work with me and they would make fun of me. And they wrote 4-part articles about how to find a bona fide expert in parental alienation. These people luring parents to sleep, making you feel victimized and that something outside of you has to change. Something out there. The kids need to figure it out. The other parent needs to change. No. You have to shift how you're showing up. You're the leader of your family. When you expect the child to do it, you're in essence saying to the child, not me, you figure it out, you do it. You're implying that your role as a parent is invalid, that it's not up to you, it's up to them. The child is fragmented. Your children are fragmented. Inside of you is fragmentation. Inside the other parent is fragmentation. It's pathology all over the place. It's childhood trauma. You have to resolve your own childhood trauma. You trauma bonded with a parent and brought children into the world. That was what you did. And the responsibility of that lies on your shoulders and the other parent. You guys decided to have children together. And it's your responsibility as a chosen parent, the leader of the family, to rise up out of the rubble and shift how you show up. This trying to convince other people, other adult children that have risen up, of a way to do it or using the right vernacular is poppycock. Do the inner work. Okay. I want to share something with you that I've shared in the past, but I try to keep my emotions in check and to be, not vulnerable, but it's so upsetting to me as an alienated child, formerly alienated child, that I think you guys don't get it. I think sometimes you don't realize. I hear the scuttlebutt of oh yeah, it's hard for my kids and blah, blah, blah. And then I see all the other comments about, they'll figure it out. There's a comment right here, to each in their own time. We're all on a journey. Yeah. And also, you're the parent. So lead your children out of this, do the inner work. And the child is harboring immense, immense amounts of guilt and shame. Immense amounts of guilt and shame. When the child rises up out of the rubble, it's shocking to look around and see the shitstorm that they have created, right? The destruction that's been created, and the hurt and the pain and the suffering, okay, out of their mouths to you. And the way that they justify that, when people first rise up out of this family dynamic, kids, when you first come into an awakening, I'm going to tell you what happens, okay? Because evidently you guys aren't like getting it, because I read these messages all the time. When the child emerges, they're so stuck that they're looking for somebody to blame, okay? So when I see things about blaming someone else, that's trauma, okay? Trauma says it's somebody else's fault. Blame has an inverse relationship with accountability, okay? Blame says something out here, not me, them, okay? So when a child rises up, they look to the alienating parent and they blame them. This parent's fault. They did this to me. It's not me, it's them. Okay? This is what they do. They do it because it helps tamper down these immense emotions of guilt and shame. Okay? They're tampering it down. Not me, this person. And as they rise in their voice, okay, you can see when people have healed. When people have healed, when the child is healed or healing, nobody's ever fully healed, right? The vernacular changes. It's not blame. It's empowerment. It's standing in their power, taking responsibility for what happened and for the choices that they made. The child carries the family lineage of guilt and shame with them, okay, with them. So it doesn't go away. It doesn't stop when they rise up. And I think the thing that I think a lot of you miss is the lack of a belief system, of the lack of worthiness, that these kids feel unworthy and unlovable. And they shout from the rooftops, twisting and distorting themselves into a pretzel for external validation, justification for what happened and what they did, hiding, right? And secretly, like, I did this, and the shame that comes along with being that child and doing the things that the child does. It doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. And the child fragments, and they give themselves away to all of the people, little pieces and parts, and twisting and distorting, and themselves into like a place of worthiness. All out here, okay? It's out here because they haven't done the internal work yet. And it's okay. It's okay. They'll get there. But it's going to take longer if the community pushes them, okay? Pushes them at a narrative. The narrative of fighting the straw man argument of whether parental alienation is a thing or not. This is not our argument as an alienated kid, okay? It's the argument of Dr. Childress as a mental health professional, right? As a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, to bring forth assessment and diagnosis. Yay, right? As an alienated child, we can bring forward our voice of the trauma in our family And if we use the vernacular parental alienation, who the fuck cares? It doesn't matter. Okay. It's okay. I use it too. Not in a professional setting, when I'm going into court, when I'm working with mental health providers, when I work with the lawyers, we use the proper terminology so we can remove the suffering for the family. We have to solve the fucking problem. Pardon my French. I like that word. But for the kids rising up, please, please, please hold the space of unconditional love for everyone. There's a flip side of this coin, which is so funny to me, which is being left out of the container with the, group of child survivors of alienation. And I oftentimes take a lot of arrows. I get lobbed into all kinds of boxes that people like to put me in. Or she's associated with Dr. Childress, so we can't talk to her, right? She's associated with, she's only a high school graduate, so she can't do anything. She knows nothing, right? She's just a coach. Let me tell you how to hire a bona fide parental alienation expert. Blah, blah, blah. I don't give a shit about any of that stuff, you guys. I don't care. And you shouldn't care either. You should work with people that you have an essence match with. So if that's us, great. We have a solution. We solve shit around here. We don't just talk about parental alienation here. We actually solve it. So if you want to solve it, you can solve it. Okay, you can solve it. You can do the work. And those of you that work with me, this is not for the faint of heart. This is not, let's blame everyone else. How you get the other parent to change is to shift how you're showing up, your heart, your mindset, your victimization. You have to get out of it. You are fragmenting. You are fragmented and fragmenting, and it's impacting your children. And if you're harboring a story about them figuring it out, that's delusional. And look what's happening with the kids that are figuring it out. They're getting captured by the pathology in a different way, right? It's disgusting. I could have captured them. I could have said, hey, look over here. Let me help you. Let me get you on the right? Dr. Childress could have done that. But no, everybody finds their own voice. And maybe that's what this comment is, that we find our own voice in our journey. Yes, we find our own voice in our journey. And those of us that know, we hold the space. Okay? We reflect back. We show you. Okay? As a parent and the kids. I know that some of these people, I know some of the people in the comments I've been reading, I know you. And these like hard line, black and white stances about people using the vernacular of parental alienation. It's like, stop drawing such a hard line in the sand. Now, don't hear me wrong here. I'm not saying you can do the Gardner model and the Childress model. We'll just call it that for ease of use. You can't merge the two when you're trying to resolve this in the professional setting. Okay, you cannot. It won't work. And parental alienation is not a diagnosable pathology. It isn't. But we don't invalidate kids' experiences as they're rising up out of it. Now, we all know with minor children, you can't go to a minor kid and say you're being alienated, because what do they say? How dare you say that? This is my voice. It's not the other parent, it's me, right? And the Gardnerian experts, you know what they're doing right now? Oh, let's hide behind this. Yeah, it's not me. Veil of concealment for the adult children. It's them. It's their voice. They're saying parental alienation is real. They've looked at all of our research. Disgusting. It's disgusting. It is so infuriating. That's what sets us back. And now these children are riled up. Okay, they're adults, but the authentic child in them, they're riled up. And they're fighting a straw man. And they think they're being shunned by the professional community. I don't know, Dr. Childress. Dr. Childress isn't shunning anyone. He isn't. He has a purpose in this battle. It's different than yours, and it's different than mine. We do totally different things, okay? I respect Dr. Childress. immensely. I respect his work. And before Dr. Childress came along, all there was Gardner. And I used to work under that umbrella, and it was so hard. Okay, it's impossible. You to get a court order and a solution that isn't appealable under that model is a fool's errand. When Dr. Childress laid it out for us, oh my God, I can't tell you the relief I felt. Finally, somebody in the professional community gets it. And the bona fide experts that want to remain an expert, right? They want to remain an expert in this new pathology. They're luring you in and lulling you to sleep in a straw man argument. It is a straw man argument. It's not a real argument, okay? And I see moms groups and dads groups and finger pointing and all this shunning and hating and splitting. Stop it. Stop the splitting. Stop it. People, honestly, if these adult children were your kids and you're squarely in Childress camp, and one of your kids rose up like this and started talking about it, I would guarantee you would jump in the container with them. I guarantee you. I know you would, because it's your child and you love them. So you should be thinking about these children that are rising up out of the rubble as your child. We don't shun them. We don't hate on them. We can disagree with them. Of course, it's okay to disagree. We can all have a different opinion. Okay, it's okay. We can all have a different opinion. We can all look at things differently. Okay, we can do this and still love each other. I can disagree with that group of people and still love all of them. Okay, I can see where everything is, and it's okay, right? It's okay. I can see that I'm not part of that group. It's a little disappointing since I'm an adult child, and it's a little triggering. Like, what in the world? How am I not part of this? Why aren't they calling me and asking me? I've been around from the beginning. Hell, I paid the damn way on social media. I was the first one, timid and scared as hell, speaking up as an alienated kid, putting myself out there, resolving the family dynamic, and took all the arrows. Okay, I got attacked every which way to Sunday. Every which way to Sunday. The Gardnerians hate me, right? The moms groups hate me. The dads groups hate me. Now the adult children, yikes, right? Like, there's just no winning, because there is no winning. And it's okay. I'll take the arrows. I'll take the shit. And I'm going to give you jewels back. You can't take it personally. When you stand on this battlefield in this family dynamic, it's fragmenting. It's splitting. It's suffering. It's people suffering at their deepest level of trauma. And it triggers our deepest level of trauma. It really does. And your co-parent, they're probably the most traumatized of all, because only a traumatized, abused child grows up to be a traumatizing, abusive parent. That's how it works. And when we don't show up with empathy and compassion, we hold our family stuck. We stay stuck. We get so stuck. And I get it. I get it. I get what it's like to be you, and I understand. And I love you guys so much. And we have to come together and support each other. And when we disagree, we can't be cutting each other down and shunning each other and eliminating each other and pushing back on a difference of opinion. Your kids love you. And the more you stay stuck in this space of splitting, of pushing away, the longer it is that the solution is available for everyone. And so I want to say to the group of adults, survivors, I like to call us thrivers. I feel like thriving is so much of a healthier word, and out of a place of, healing and empowerment. I feel like surviving is still in the mindset of like, I made it through, but still a little victim-y. And those of you who've been in my world for a really long time, There are no victims, only volunteers. Your life is a manifestation of what you believe you deserve unconsciously and most of the time. And when you discover these truths about yourself and you start to shift and heal, then you extend the healing olive branch over to your beloved children and the beloved child within the co-parent that you chose to bring children into the world with. You chose that. Okay, this is a decision that was made by the adults. Okay. I mean, I can get all woo and spiritual on you here and tell you that the child chose it too to heal the family trauma. But this is an opportunity for you to do this inner work. And I've been teaching this work for almost 2 decades. And I will continue to tell you that this is a you game. This requires you as the chosen parent to rise up and to shift how you're showing up so that you free the dancers in your story, okay, the co-parent and the children from acting out in the way that this family drama and trauma is acting out in your life. You deserve it and your children deserve it. And it's an inner game. You have to look at the scenario from a completely different perspective. You have to look at it as a chosen parent. The longer you stay mired in the targeted parent mindset, the longer you will be stuck and the longer your children will be out here. And yeah, these kids are rising up and they're still being attacked. I rose up, still being attacked. It's just crazy, this family dynamic, and seeing people who are in this space, as parents. And I just say, when you feel the desire to attack one another, stop and ask yourself, if this were my child, how would I want somebody else to speak to them? If my child rose up out of the rubble, how would you want somebody to speak to them? If they were stuck in the Gardner model and they were being lured in by that, how would you want a professional or a parent to speak to your child so that they could really fully emerge? Now, I've been doing this work a long time, and I hear parents say this all the time. No, I don't want them to reject the other parent. And I don't, I want them to have both parents in their life. And I know secretly, most of you say this out loud, but internally, what is actually happening is secretly you want them to be angry at the other parent. And that traps the child. And I've done High Road, which is our reunification workshop that gets court ordered, for years. And every parent that attends says the same thing. No, not me. That's not what I want. And then a couple days in, they pull me outside and they ask me the question every time, which is, well, when are they gonna say what the other parent has done? And when are they gonna be angry at the other parent? I'm like, that is not what we do here. Okay, we don't do that. We don't hate on the parents, either one of them. I don't care how shitty a parent is. We don't throw them under the bus. Okay, we don't turn the other cheek and pretend that shit isn't happening, but we don't throw the parent under the bus, because half of the child is that parent too. And so when the child jumps from the frying pan and into the fire, because that's what happens when they start to emerge out of the rubble, they get out of the frying pan and then they reunite, and now they're in the fire. We still have a fractured family, guys and ladies, guys and gals, and everything in between. Okay, we still have a fractured family. We still have a fractured child. Now the child is emerging and they're like, oh shit, this parent did these things. Uh-oh, I don't want to see that. Or I have to hate you, because if I acknowledge that, then I have to acknowledge my own behavior. And it's really hard for kids to acknowledge their own behavior. So it's easier to blame it on the other parent, even if the other parent was influencing them. Okay. So now we still have a fragmented family. We still have a broken family. So we still have to repair the breaches in the family. And the reason the children are, stay in contact with me, most of them after High Road, and the families, is because we don't fragment the family. We do everything in our power to reintegrate the family. It's so important because the kids love both parents. You may not like the other parent, but the children love both of you. They love you so much. So how do you change the other parent? Yeah, by taking responsibility for your contribution, big or small, and by shifting how you're showing up. And it starts with what's going on back here, the inner game. How are you showing up in your children's lives? How are you showing up energetically? How are you showing up in your mindset? Okay. And just look around you. You'll know it's easy. Read your comments, read your posts, read what you're doing. It's I almost didn't do this, what would Dorsey do today, but I was like, no, pull up your big girl panties. Dee that's my lower self. She's the little alienated kid. And, she's sometimes just so frustrated by watching you guys. And it's so frustrating to see the constant fighting and splitting in this family and this family dynamic. And all your kids want is for you to shift. They feel so bad about what's happened, about what they did, and they can never take it back. No matter how forgiving you are, and no matter how much you tell them you love them, they still feel deep, deep pain and shame for how they showed up. And then rejecting the parent that got them there or that they allied with doesn't solve it. It's still not solved. And so I implore you to embrace each other and the children, even if you disagree, hold the space of connection and unconditional love and understanding, compassion. I'm going to step off my soapbox now, and there's a lot of comments, so I'm going to read some of these comments and catch my breath. I apologize for, I swore I told myself I wasn't going to cry. Is this referring to the champion behind and in the forefront of the Alienation Project? I'm not going to name names, but you guys all know who I'm talking about. Oh yeah, I read that one. This is a more dynamic perspective on the stage around rising up. I will be listening and re-listening to this. Yay to that. Thank you for your authenticity and vulnerability. You're welcome. You really helped me understand the children's perspective. ABPA. Dorsey, I have no contact with my ex-wife since 2012. I have every Thursday and every weekend. How in the world could I show up differently? She calls the police 18 times since 2018. It's an inner game. On the 15th, post-divorce trial in April, child welfare 5 times since 2022. It's an inner game. Okay, we've seen all of that before. We've worked with lots of parents with lots of things. I had a case one time, there were 300 times in family court. You have to shift the internal game. The way you shift how you show up is how you shift in here. It requires work. It's what we do in Reconnect. Some of the parents in Reconnect said, damn, in the first phase of Reconnect, we do more inner healing work than one woman said that she did in 9 years of therapy. Okay, the inner work that I'm focused on is to peel it back and heal it in a safe and loving container so that you can shift how you show up for your kids energetically and then in the real world. So it's an inner game. Okay, it starts there. Support all of them, parents and all these children waking up and using their voice. Need some humility. True. How could someone like me show up differently? I answered that question. My 3 girls have just fully succumbed to the campaign. I had to go to North Carolina to survive. They were hunting for me, went on the assault against me, using anything they could to try to lie about me. This is a narrative inside of you and the target. And I know what it's like to be the target because I am the target of a lot of hate. And so the narrative of why are you choosing the experience? And I can say this here, Brandon, but the truth is it does require deep work and guidance through the process of really understanding that narrative, that experience that you're having and why you're having it, so that you can shift your belief system around it. And it does require this deep, deep, meaningful, beautiful work that you as the chosen parent have to do to lead your children out of the darkness. Praying for all of you. Don't give up no matter what. Thank you, Mark. Jumping in the container, like by saying thank you for telling me how this has all made you feel. What can I do to help now? That's what I'd probably say. Okay. I started with you way back at the beginning, and I know your work and the results that are possible. The work is not always easy, but so worth it. I don't know who that is because it just said Facebook user, but thank you so much for being with me from the beginning. And, when I first started on Facebook, I started a little group called Let's Get Your Kids Back. And I've actually done a workshop in here called that. And I remember I was like shaking, and I launched the group in the middle of the night. And then I launched my first class, and I was like terrified, and I remember, and there was nobody talking about it. And this was early internet days, so there was like not a lot of stuff even out on the internet. And I was so nervous and so scared. And, and then speaking the authenticity of the alienated child, and looking around, and it was like people were all over me, and it was a little overwhelming at first, and then so much hatred, from pathogenic parents, so much hatred even from targeted parents who were angry at this messaging that I have still today. My messaging hasn't changed, and and then from the professional community. So watching a video of people getting shunned or believing that they're shunned is like, it just makes me want to barf. It makes me so upset that, because I know that feeling. I remember making calls and emails. I save everything, by the way. Someday I'm going to put together a timeline with all the evidence for you to see how insidious the community, the professional community, has been with those of us who've risen up out of the rubble. And, yeah, boy, the beginning was scary. This needs a stellar documentary. None have been done. I agree. Not at the level I have always wanted. Have almost started a few times, but something substantial and with a voice of unity. It's Emmy nominated, most recently built the set that The Chosen filmed for the last several seasons. Interesting. You put your phone number on a public forum. I don't know if you meant to do that. Questions all chosen parents should ask themselves. How are you showing up? How is what you were saying landing with your child? And have you cleaned up your side of the mirror? Hey, that's me. Yeah, we should be asking those questions. Your makeup looks beautiful. You look so much like your mom. So pretty. Oh, thank you. My mom is beautiful. Zero contact with mom. We can post expenses and appointments on our family wizard. Yes. So no answers to our situation. That's 23 unfounded false allegations. Wow. And which was after 5 unfounded SA and dependency and neglect case, which lasted 18 months. Divorce final in 11. I did not mean to take over the chat, by the way. Got it. So there is not a no answer. The answer is, I don't know anything about your case except for this little bit of information you shared with me. And, you can look at all of those things. Let me give you the best answer I can give you based on the information you've shared with me. You can look at all of those things, okay, all of the narrative, all of the things that have happened, and you can continue to keep looking at that and be stuck, but you can't change any of that, okay? And it's really destabilizing for you to be stuck in that, because being stuck there makes it difficult to move forward and heal your own internal trauma, right? So all of those things are traumatic things that have happened to you, and I'm sorry that those things happened to you. It's shit. It's so bad. And at the same time, moving into the space here, right? And doing the inner work, it requires you to go in. And it's hard to explain it, but it's like any other thing that you do in your life, any other area of your life of which you want to experience an achievement, right? You want to experience a shift or being next level. Personal growth, right? Personal growth is required. It requires you to look at how you got into all of those things in the first place. What brought you to the experience? What's your alienation story? And then shifting it to your reunification story or your reunification plan, better than a story. So it's not about like all these things. All those things are like pavers in the road. Okay. They've all been laid. And how did you get there in the first place? And that's that internal work. It's the understanding and the place of compassion and understanding for self, right? How did you get here? I posted on Dr. Childress's page this morning, and I was deep in meditation this morning before I even saw that video. I don't even know why I opened my laptop, but I did, and my music left my headphones, and I went in and I saw the video, and I was like in this like place of whoa. And as the kid, right, I went right back into really a deeper understanding, even from my own perspective and my own childhood, and feeling ostracized even in the family, and even though I was rejecting my dad, and then all the things that came after in my first marriage, and the relationships that I had after, and what happened in my family dynamic and my family of origin, and the narrative, my story about myself and what I believed I deserved. And it was so deeply held and unconscious, and when it comes to the surface, it's terrifying, and you push it back down because it's hard to admit those things. It's hard to be vulnerable, right? It's hard to be a leader, a compassionate leader, and strong for everyone, and at the same time still be vulnerable and say, wow, something inside of me, right? Something inside of me is vulnerable, and something that I believed about myself created a whirlwind of scenarios in my life, all of them, good, bad, and indifferent. Okay. So this family dynamic is playing out an unconscious story that you have. And I get it. And it's hard. That's a hard pill to swallow. It really is a hard pill to swallow. And I'm not saying you just take the horse pill, take the tranquilizer, and la-dee-da. That's not the way it works. Because here I am, almost 20 years later, of understanding what happened, digging all this stuff up. And even I feel like, whoa, we're okay. There's this still going on. Okay. So we all have healing to do, all of us. And we heal, and then there's a deeper layer. Okay. We keep going. And just when we think we've like arrived, the next layer emerges. And so hopefully that explains it a little bit better, that it's the story, your story about your deservingness. What do I believe I deserve? Hello, beloved Suzanne. I don't know if you're still here, and I'm busy working, but I've offered peace numerous times, but no response, or most recently told to go away. Keep showing up. I know I'm going to say that. But yeah, again, also the internal stuff, there's like some shifting. I feel like you're like right on the precipice of a massive shift, which will change the dynamic. I've learned a lot with you. I've learned a lot with you in the last 4 years, and I've been part of the group. I look forward to the monthly calls. Super helpful. Thank you. Please erase if you are able. Let me see. I'll do it when we get off the live. If you want to send me your phone number, you can do it in a private DM. Just DM me. FYI, started dating. She and I consciously waited until her son accepted appointment to Naval Academy last summer to get engaged. Our 3 girls are 2 ninth grade, and my youngest 7th grade. I may have felt victimized during our 4-year marriage after dating for 14 months prior. Yeah. I married at 36 an elementary teacher who really taught our girls to tell third parties they hate me. It's so funny how we get lured into things like elementary school teachers and stuff. The pathology is everywhere, you guys. The truth is, it's in our schools, it's in our government, it's in our groups, right? It's elements of it in us, because you can't be married to somebody pathogenic and then you don't start acting that way, because your brain starts mirroring the things around you. And one of the things I talk a lot about in this group and the work that I do is, choose your friends and your circle wisely, right? Who do you want to spend your time with? Who are you surrounding yourself with? What are the influences that you have? Are you listening to people that are stuck in the victim story? Or are you listening to people that are lifting you up out of the rubble, even if it feels uncomfortable? Okay. My messaging feels uncomfortable for a lot of people, and you're not ready for it until you are. And then when you shift how you show up, this internal stuff, you're going to fight kicking and screaming every step of the way, because the part of our consciousness that holds so tight is our 3-year-old self that so desperately wants to have a voice and to be heard and to stand in their power, right? And so this is why we see the alienated kids rising up the way that they do, finding their way. Ooh, they're shaking off the rubble, right? And it's very seldom that an alienated kid rises up and jumps from the fire and on solid land. Okay. They usually from the fire to the frying, or from the frying pan to the fire. And then they learn how to get into the center of solid, okay, consciousness. And if you're not there, it's hard to guide the child there. And most people that we work with, you get out of the relationship and then you start discovering what happened to you in the relationship after you're out of the relationship, right? This happens to us. We have people that leave domestic violence situations and they come around and they're like, oh my God, I crawled out by the skin of my teeth and my children think I abandoned them. And so they believe this to be true. And there's an element of truth in it, because if you left them there and you crawled out and then you figured it out and you didn't realize that the pathology was going to take over and blah, 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 whatever happened, they still believe this to be true. So now they're internalizing all of that, and that there's something wrong with them and they feel unworthy. This is where it all comes from for everyone, everywhere. Okay. Everywhere. So many naive people fell for the alienator's nonsense. Many came to me later and apologized after she discarded them as well, and after they did what she wanted. So sad. Happens all the time. And, the family dynamic is brutal. And the family of origin seeped in pathology, carries the torch of the pathology until somebody in the family wakes up, rises up, does the internal work. When you do the healing work, you're healing for your lineage, you're healing for your family, you're healing for your children. And you can do it this way. Okay, so you can do it this way, your family of origin. You can do it that way, your children. It does it for you. And then it goes this way to the parent, the co-parent, who's also a suffering, abused child trapped in an adult's body, unsure of how to solve the problem. So the answers are here. The solution is available. I appreciate you letting me stand on my soapbox and share vulnerably with you today this deep emotion I have for you and your beloved children and the suffering. I carry it. I carry the suffering and I carry it with you. And I love you guys so much. And I just want you to know how much your kids love you. It's these deep, 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 deep love for each of you. Okay, last question. Don't you have to authentically heal, which you can't control its timing, before you can show up differently? The alienator and or kids still trigger me. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. You have to do the healing work. When you do it, that won't trigger you anymore. You might have a different trigger. I used to get so triggered by my ex and my mom. And I know what it's like to be where you are now and be destabilized and be like, Oh my God. And it was so hard until it wasn't. Until, yes, I did the healing work. And the healing that we do, that I guide our clients through in private sessions and in group healing, is deeply, deeply profound. And it doesn't have to be a long, drawn out process. So, but you have to be willing to do it, and you have to show up for it, and show up. And this is how you show up differently. This is how you create a different space, the space of unconditional love. It's hard until it isn't, and then it gets easy. Okay, last question. Dorcy, as you know, the kids therapists end up keeping the kids stuck. Thoughts? Yes, it's the most disgusting thing about this family dynamic is the professional community surrounding this family dynamic. It's a great way to close, so thank you. Let me close by saying, because it really brings it all full circle. This is where we get into this bullshit straw man argument. Parental alienation doesn't exist, right? It's a false narrative created by a cottage industry of experts. Dr. Childress and Dorothy must be part of those people, right? So now the back and forth, it's not a real thing, it is a real thing, it's not a real thing. And the therapists hide behind the veil. I don't have to solve anything because everybody's fighting out here. Instead of doing their job, which is what Dr. Childress is talking about. Assessment leads to diagnosis, leads to treatment. And if it is child psychological abuse confirmed, then it's a child protection issue, not a child custody issue. And we protect all abused children all of the time, period. Okay? All of the time, period. We don't leave children with abusive parents. Okay? Now, we don't take children from abusive parents and don't do everything we can to rehabilitate the abusive parent. We don't do that. That's also a fractured family. So yes, we recover the family problem because it's a whole family problem that requires a whole family solution. And it takes one person in the family, you, the chosen parent, to do the inner work to shift how you show up. Some of you are waiting for your children to do it. Some of you are hoping and praying that the children will do it. Some of the children are rising up, and some of the children are showing you they're doing their stuff, but they're still fractured. They're still in a fractured family. You know, I actually coached the lead kid in a alienation film that came out a few years ago, and I remember she asked me, you know, what I thought about her being adopted as an adult and rejecting her other parent and, you know, allying with her her alienated parent. And I said, well, my opinion is not really relevant. And she's like, but it is, I want to know. And I shared with her, you know, my opinion of that is that you're jumping from the pan to the fire and you still have a fractured family. And until you resolve within yourself, right, in yourself, the fragmentation, as long as you keep looking at this parent and rejecting and hating and being angry, holding the anger, which is just anger, is an unprocessed grief response. Okay. Anger in an alienated child is an unprocessed grief response. So as long as you're remaining angry in any direction, okay, you have unprocessed grief. Okay. So anger, guilt, and shame, unprocessed grief comes up in anger. And she got angry at me, which I knew was going to happen. And she stopped talking to me. And I remember talking to the director of the film and saying, listen, this is, you know, it's still fragmented. This is still a problem. And the ending of the film changed eventually. And the reason the ending of the film changed was because the child actually recovered and reintegrated. And she sent me a message apologizing for acting out in protest towards me by sharing what I'm sharing with you right now. And she admitted that she wasn't ready to hear the messaging, but she knew that it was right and that she had resolved this for herself and her family. And yeah, and I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity and to share with her vulnerably, even though I knew that there would be pushback because I know what it's like to be that kid. And but that's the truth. So it's solved when the child is recovered when you recover the child within you first. So I'm going to end it with that. I thank you guys so much for listening and for participating in all the comments today. I love you very much. And just know that your child loves you and loves the other parent, and they're waiting. And the sooner you rise and the sooner you do this internal healing work, the sooner it comes together for everyone. So peace in so you can have peace out. I love you guys so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful night and rest of your week. Bye for now.